presentation, so don't worry. All right, very cool. So I am going to go ahead and share my screen. You guys can see the first slide now, right?
Yes.
Awesome. Okay, cool. So let's see this. When I change it, did it change for you or is it the same? It didn't. That means I need to resume my share. Here we go. Here we go. Cool. I'm going to stop share and start over because it doesn't want to let me resume. We're going to get through this together. There we go. Now you should see one with a white background. Do you?
Yes.
This is exciting. Technology is my favorite thing in the world. Okay, so let's start with it. And actually, before I jump into anything, I want to share something that I'm going to bet that maybe some of you, maybe all of you have heard before. And I think there's certain realities in life that maybe we need to be reminded of more than once. And so we're going to do that today. And you may want to write this down if you're a note taker type person, because I think it is a great reminder. 90% of your success starts with mindset. 90, as in almost all of it. 90% of your success starts with mindset. And if you're thinking like, gosh, that sounds high and fluffy, I mean, think about how many really highly intelligent people you've met over the years that have like done nothing with their life. It really is mindset. And I think that particularly in the climate that we're in, within our business, within our world, now more than ever, it's just vitally important. And I think you could be super unknowledgeable about real estate. You could be brand new or just you've had your head in the sand the whole time. And if you could just get your mind right and you're willing to put some action behind that, because the other 10% is that skill in action, you go crush it. And you can go be that person that people look at, they're like, how'd they do that? And you don't need to tell them, just keep crushing it, right? It's 90% mindset. So that's why what we talk about today is so important. And so, you know, you've got the first thing here, like all of the talent in the world, the knowledge, the grit, like it just, none of it matters if your mind's not right. And the only purpose of today is to kind of drive that home. And then I am going to give you some tangible things that you can implement into your world so that on a regular basis, your mindset is in the right place and not just like once in a while when you go to a great class, right? So let's talk about the business and where it's at. Like, would you guys agree that we went through a number of years, with 2021 probably being the height of it, where while of course I believe that if you were in the business then you were probably working really hard, if you had a pulse and you were willing to speak to people, you could make a lot of money. Like, is that okay? So that's a fair assumption. Nobody's throwing tomatoes at the screen. We're cool, right? Um, so here's the reality. We're out of that now, right? And I want you to understand that I think that's a gift. Those years where it was easy, I know it wasn't really easy, and yet the opportunity, finding the opportunities was easy. What a wonderful gift. We'll be in that market at some point again if you stick in the business long enough. And the next time it comes, you'll recognize it and you will hustle your heart out and make a ton of money and store some nuts for the winter, right? And yet the cool thing about being out of that is that we have full control over what we're going to do. Our business, our success, it is 100% based off our performance, which we have control of. We don't have control over the market, so who cares about that? We have control over our performance, over our performance. And what I think our performance equals is our potential, which I truly believe for any given human being is unlimited. Like, I 100% believe that the only real limits we have are the ones we place on ourselves. So your potential is this huge unlimited thing, and your performance is just that minus the interference that we allow. Now, I know that the world is full of interference, it's full of interruptions. There's really nothing we can do about that. And yet we can get really great about not letting those things rule our lives. Now, the other thing about our performance is that it's totally driven by the relationship that we have with possibility. Here's the reality, right? Like, let's just be friends and be honest with each other. We probably, did anybody have an interesting year last year? Like, maybe you still did well and yet you fought for it, or maybe you didn't do as well as you would have liked, and it's been tough, right? So our performance is driven by our relationship with possibility, and we're in a down market with at least the interest rates are getting a little better, and yet the interest rates are yucky. And we're now in an election year, and I don't really care what side of the fence you sit on. It's not fun. Like an election year is not going to be fun. So we've got all this negativity around us, and yet we're in a performance-based market, which means we've got to do everything that we can to be focused on possibility. Like no matter what's going on in the world, no matter what the makeup of the market is, our job is to be the proverbial glass half full. Like we've got to be positive if we're going to get what we want out of things. We can't let the world and the market and everybody else bring us down, because when you've got a negative mindset, you're totally blind to possibility. And here's how I'll describe it. Like, I don't know. Do you have these awful like no-see-um bugs in Texas? Because you get hot. Like, does that mean anything to you? Okay, it does. Okay, no, okay, cool. So we definitely have them in Florida where I am. And you ever just been walking down the sidewalk and you just walk into this cloud of bug that you couldn't even see coming, and you're like swatting like this? When you've got a negative mindset, and I feel like I've literally watched it in people when you get to know them well enough, like we're surrounded by possibilities all day long. We're surrounded by opportunities all day long. And a person with a negative mindset is just swatting them away like we do when we get into those clouds of bugs. And it's just wild to me, the power that we have up here. And that performance equals our potential minus interference. Like a negative mindset is like the ultimate interference. Yeah, our kids interfere, our friends, our obligations, whatever, the buyer that wants to see something last minute, the low appraisal, like we have all these other interferences. And yet the absolute worst one that we have is a negative mindset. So all you need to know at this point as we move through this little class is that if you can just get your mind right, you can be the person that all the other agents are looking at in a few months, like, how'd they figure this out? I can't sell a thing, right? And that's the goal here today. So let's switch here. Let's talk about the trap of mindset. If you were all of you in the business in 2021, was anybody not in the business in 2021? Okay, so we've got one. So here's what I'll tell you. 2021 was like this crazy year where I think everyone in the country may have bought a house or sold a house. Like it was this wild thing where just everybody and their mother was selling. And for a lot of agents, especially if you had some tenure under you, like you could barely keep up with the showings and the offers, and everything was multiple offers. You put a listing on the market and there were 82 offers in 10 minutes and they were all above list price. And it was wild, right? And I know that what I heard, and I'm going to take a wild guess that none of you fell into this trap, and yet I bet some of your friends might have fallen into this trap. All we talked about in 2021, there's no listings. There's no listings. I can't find any listings. There's no listings. There's no listings. Does that sound familiar to my friends that were in the business? Okay, great. Now, hindsight is so interesting. I'm gonna stop my share real quick and just see if there's anybody in the waiting room. Oh, if I could do that. I've lost my cursor. Oh, there we go. Please hold. I can't quite walk and chew gum yet. Here. I'm going very slowly because my cursor is invisible. Okay. No, we're good. There's nobody in there. Okay. So what I'll tell you is that 2021 was the highest number of listings sold in this country in 15 years. In 15 years. I share that with you because of the power of a negative or positive mindset. This really small percentage of real estate agents became listing monsters because everybody else was too busy complaining to their neighbor about the fact that there were no listings available. And so we're in a different market now, and yet are we looking at the opportunity side of the market, or are we in a trap? Are we waiting it out? And who knows how long it's going to be? So, looking at your reality, it's a really nice time to look at our business because we just closed out a year, right? Did we outperform 2022 and 2023, or did we slip backwards? Did we hit our goals, or did we miss them? And you don't have to tell me right now. I'm not here to shame you. I'll do that later. The point is, if we did underperform the year prior, if we did not hit our goals, what blame have we placed? And not that it's about blame, and yet have we convinced ourselves that it was because of the market and that it just is what it is? Or are we willing to realize that some of it might have happened up here? And if we're looking for 2024 to be different, that this is where it starts. And I like to look at it this way. Do I think that you should be knowledgeable about the current market? Absolutely. Like, how ridiculous would you sound to a buyer or a seller if you were like, I don't know. Like, you've got to know what's going on and keep updated. And yet what I see a lot of agents do, like a lot of agents do, is they become so hyper focused and obsessed that it's all they think about. And it just becomes this mindset of like, well, I can't do it. So my challenge to you is to find a way where you can keep yourself informed. Is that maybe once a week, once a month? It depends on, I don't know what the nature of your market is or the volatility. Like updating numbers, checking in on things, and then just putting your blinders back on. I don't know. All I do know is that you've got to find a way to be informed without being obsessed about it, because what you focus on expands. As if you've been to Bold before, you've heard it. Spoiler alert, if you come to Bold, you're going to hear it. All right. So there we go. So here's some simple things that you can do. Like, here's where the tangible comes in. Like, how do we make sure that we've got a great mindset regardless of what's happening in the world around us? And the first, and some of these are so simple. And again, you may look at these and have that gut reaction of, well, I've heard that before. And my challenge to you would be, have you done anything about it though? Or when's the last time you did something about it? Because everything on here is something that's been proven by way more people than me, right? So the first thing would be to start each day with an accomplishment of some sort, because maybe you guys don't do it, and yet I find the average agent, your day starts with this. Like, you reach over to your bedside table and you grab this thing that controls our life, and it's not always full of good news. And so I think the first thing you got to do is start off with some sort of accomplishment. Could it be as simple as getting out of bed and making it? Sure. Is it working out? Is it going and getting your kids? I don't care what it is. I just think that we've got to do something, because you'll hear me say this, and I know it sounds so silly, and I just feel like it's kind of one of the easiest ways to look at it. Your brain is just a real squishy computer. Like, when you think about it, like, the emotions are what taint things, right? And change that. Like, your brain just knows what you give it. And so if you are a task oriented person, if you're a win oriented person, go create one. Make that the first thing that you do with your day and your time. All right. The next thing that I would have you do, and again, I don't mean be completely blind to the world. Stop watching the news. Like, we all know that people got murdered and were robbed and people stole. Like, the news has just, and again, it's not even about going down the rabbit hole of the validity of news sources. It's just negativity sells more than positivity. Personally, I'm not turning on news on any type of television unless it's like the night of an election, like I want to know what happened, or I live in Florida and if there's a hurricane within a couple days. Like, other than that, I'm not watching the news, because I look at it this way. You know, you have people that will say that that makes me uninformed. We live in a digital world. Like, if something big happens, like we go to war, I'm pretty sure I'm going to find out about it just as quickly as if I turned on the news. So for me, like, I'm just going to leave the news alone, because I don't need the minutia of the negativity. It's no good for us, right? Affirmations. Affirmations are huge. And here's the reality, because I'm a human being, and I know that some of us have thoughts and feelings around the idea of affirmations. And some of us have the thought and feeling around an affirmation that affirmations are silly or affirmations don't work. And what I love to point out to people, because I do love being right, what I like to point out to people is that's an affirmation, right? Like, you saying affirmations are silly, you saying affirmations don't work. The point is that that's an affirmation. And so I share that to say, everybody on this screen, anybody who watches this recording, anybody who roams this earth and speaks, we use affirmations every single day. The challenge is we don't necessarily use them in the way that they could best serve us. So creating powerful affirmations, positive affirmations, right? A great affirmation that'll change you and the way that you see things is going to be powerful. It's going to be purposeful. It's going to be present tense. That's probably the hardest part. It's really weird to say I'm $1 million earner when you got 10 bucks in the bank. And yet the minute we don't make it present tense, then it's not real. And I'll share if you guys are fine with, well, it doesn't matter. You can't stop me. I'm host anyways. I will share a story because if you haven't already seen it, like I tend to be like a snarky guy. It's who I am at my core. And I'm a nice guy. I'm just a little snarky. And I really did not believe in the idea of affirmations. And years ago, I was working with one of my first coaches, and I had a good business. I was making good money. It wasn't bad. And yet I had gone like 6 months making almost the same amount of money every month. And so it was feeling stagnant. Like I truly believe that you're either growing or you're dying. And so I wanted to be growing. And I wanted to break through this level of achievement. And what it was I was making about 20 grand a month. Again, you don't need to cry for me. It's not a horrible living. And it was a few years ago. And yet I didn't like that it wasn't changing. So I had my coach push and push and pushing on affirmations, and I just thought it was so stupid. And eventually, more than anything, just so she would stop talking about it, I said, sure, tell me what to do. And so we crafted an affirmation that was really simple. It was, I love earning $50,000 a month. And my challenge was that I was supposed to say it every single day. That was how I was supposed to start my day. And I did. And the first week or two, it was funny too, because like I didn't say it like I meant it at all. I mean, I was rolling my eyes as I said it. And I wasn't going to lie to her and tell her I did it. So I did it. You know, I love earning. Like it was ridiculous. And then after a couple of weeks, I started to say it with a little less snark and a little more sincerity. And then, you know, it didn't take that long to where I really got into it. And then I wasn't really paying attention. I was just doing it. And it was a little over 3 months into saying it every day and back then I wasn't super great about tracking my numbers. I've grown a lot. I happened to like look at my business bank statement and I was like, wow, there's a lot in there. And I did some back math, and about 3 months out of saying it, that third month was the first month ever. And at that point I was 11 years in the industry that I had earned $50,000 in a month. And the reality is I didn't stop saying it when that happened. And that became almost a new standard. I mean, it was a little bit of like evening out the plane, right? And yet I never went back down to the 20. And so in that instant, I totally changed my opinion on affirmations. And I am super duper, to my kids' chagrin half the time, I'm all about affirmations. Like, and I'm not taking a negative one from anybody I care about. Like you will, if you choose to take the bold that I'm doing, when you give like a poopy affirmation, I'm gonna call it out every time with a smile so you don't feel bad. Yet I'm gonna remind you that was an affirmation. What you just said, I just can't get a listing. That's an affirmation. We have so much power, and most of us never harness it. So affirmations, quiet the noise. Like we live in such a high energy, high speed time, and we attempt to be way too many things to way too many people all at the same time. We got to get clear on our goals, and we got to block out anything that doesn't support it. Like I think some of us take that high school mentality of wanting everybody to like us way too far into our adulthood, and we people please, and you got to cut that out. You got to learn to get to a place where you don't do things or spend significant time on things that aren't going to bring you closer to the life that you're looking to lead. A big one for me is curating your social media. Look, social media is even if you don't like it, it's like a necessary evil at this point. It's a part of our world. It's never going to go away. It might morph. It's never going to go away. It's a part of our world, and it's a huge part of how we can up our game in our business. And it's a big old bowl of wine. Like it's just everybody's whining and complaining and spouting off political and really like all this stuff, right? I'm gonna tell you right now, like, just stop it. Like, cut people. If somebody on your Facebook or Instagram or whatever is constantly posting negative things, just unfollow them. They won't even know. Like, you're not hurting anybody. Unfollow them. Or if they're like an acquaintance that doesn't even matter in the first place, unfriend them, get rid of them. A few years ago, I just started, man, those three little white dots on the right side of people's profile, like, man, that just was my favorite thing to click. Like, you're going to whine, you do it more than once, you're out. You're just out. And now my social media, which is a big part of life, it just is like sunshine and rainbows and puppies all the time because I don't leave people on that don't act like that. So that's another great way because again, you're this mushy computer in here, all it knows is what you give it. And if you're giving it negativity, even if it's not coming from you, that's still what it takes. Stop working like a robot. You want a bad mindset? Work 24/7. Real estate agents have a really nasty habit of thinking that they must have the same availability as a 24-hour Walmart. And there's no real emergencies in real estate, and there's no great decisions after about 6, 7 o'clock. Like, you've got to start taking some time off and taking time for yourself. And I think the hardest time to do that is when you don't have a lot of money and or a lot of business. And I think it's the most important time to do it. Because if you're in a do or die place in your business, you can't afford to be in a bad place. So you've got to take that time to unplug and set some boundaries. And I'll tell you right now, about 6, 7 years ago, I was making a ton of money in this business and I was ready to walk away. And I had to reevaluate the way that I was working, the amount of time that I was working, the power I was giving to clients. And ultimately I had to start looking at things this way. Who's going to show up at your funeral and cry? It's not your clients. It's the people that you are shorthanding because of your clients. So you just got to adjust that and don't act like a robot. All right. Be selective and protective of your circle. Look, this is not new. You're the sum of the 5 people you hang out with. It's true, though. It's just true. And here's the thing, like, I'm not big on cutting people out of my life. That sounds real dramatic. I am big on, all right, you're really kind of not serving my growth, kind of negative, and we hang out. I'm just going to stop putting energy over here. And I'm going to take that energy and put it somewhere else. I can tell you right now, the majority of the success that I have in my life, business and personal, is because I started picking the time that I was going to spend better. And I never want to be the most successful person in my circle. I never want to have the most money of the people in my circle. I never want to be the best dad, be the best husband, be the nicest, be the funniest. Like, I want to be the little fish all the time because I want people to pull me up to my next level. So be really careful where you spend your time. If you're hanging out with that one agent at the office that complains 24/7, it's contagious, real contagious, COVID level. Like, you just got to walk away, right? Do something for yourself every single day. I don't know why we're conditioned that we're supposed to put everybody before ourselves. And what I do know is that you can't pour from an empty cup, personally or professionally. So you've got to take some time and do something for yourself. And it might be a 5-minute something. It doesn't have to, you don't need to go buy yourself a $2,000 purse every day. And like, do something for yourself every day. We've got to stop putting everybody before ourselves. That's been a journey for me, especially as a dad, to consciously say out loud to people that I put myself before my kids. Now, that doesn't mean that I'm not going to run into a burning building for them. I want them to have a happy dad. I want them to have a present dad. And in order to do that, I got to do stuff for me too. And I want to set that example for them so that they grow up that way. And then the last thing on this list is end each day reflecting on your wins. Because again, if we're going on the law of averages, I think most people go to bed thinking about the stuff they did wrong, thinking about the listing appointment they messed up, not the one they won, thinking about the call that went bad, not the 15 calls that went great. And we got to be really careful about that because the last thing you think about and the first thing you think about, hence you've noticed, start each day with an accomplishment, end each day reflecting on your wins. I'm a big fan of journaling. Something else I thought was really dumb and silly until years ago when somebody convinced me I was wrong. Look, I don't want to sit there and write all this negativity in my journal. Where did I win today? What did I learn today? How did I step out of my comfort zone today? Like, those are the type of things that I want to think of at the end of my day, because that's what I want to carry into the next morning. So before we go on to the next thing, any questions? I don't want to totally just word vomit on you. Anything? You good? Okay, cool. All right. So let me explain what this is, this little gray block. All right. This is from the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. if you're going to have a great mindset, you're going to have control of your time. I think that I'm going to take a wild guess. Was one of the biggest reasons y'all got your real estate license was to take control of your time, to not have to answer to other people, right? And then what happens? We totally give up control of our time. We do whatever somebody wants. I call it the Pop-Tart realtor. Sure, I'm in the middle of something with my kids. No, I'll just leave them here. It's cool. I'll go show you the house. Oh, your appraisal came in low. Cool. I won't lead generate today. I'll just jump on it right now, even though it's not that timely, right? Like, so we've got to protect our time if we're going to protect our mindset, because it's all a full circle thing. And so this is from the 7 Quadrants of Highly Effective People by Stephen Covey. It's the four quadrants of time. And so you've got these 4 quadrants. You've got that top one is important and urgent. That's the real estate agents love to think they're fire people. Like, I don't understand. I got to put out fires. I got all these fires. No, you don't. No, you don't. You just get worked up over things, right? So it's all these deadline related activities that it's the things that create stress, right? And so that's important and urgent, like the things that are just pressing in your face. And then you've got important and not urgent. These are your growth activities, things like learning and reading and exercise and family time and meditation, all that type of stuff. So important and not urgent there. Then on the lower level, you've got the not important stuff. So you have not important and urgent, right? These are the interruptions. These are the gotta minutes. This is where you lose your focus, right? And there's studies that have been done. It's interesting. All of the different Ivy League colleges have basically done the same study and proven the same thing, right? And what they found is that when you lose focus, like let's say you're in lead gen mode, right? Because that's something you all should be doing every day. And you lose that focus, it's not just the 5 minutes where you got squirreled, right? It takes the average person 20 minutes to get back into focus. So like think of how many times a day you get distracted, because you're human and I get it, and multiply it times 20 minutes. And that's what you're losing, which is just, it's huge. It's a huge amount of time. And then that last quadrant is not important and not urgent. This is the time wasting stuff. We've become really good at this as a human race, right? This is social media. And again, not to say any time on social media is bad. And yet when you're like, I need a break, I'm going to look at Facebook for 5 minutes. And an hour later, you're still, right? Like it's the wasting time. It's playing games. It's watching TV. And I'll tell you right now, I'm a fan of quadrant number 4. I think all of us should spend some time in quadrant number 4 because it's where we make sure we don't become a robot. I think the challenge is, are we measuring how much time we're spending in number 4? And does that coincide with the type of business and life that we're looking to have, right? So here's something I like to ask. So if you look at these, the important and urgent, the important and not urgent, the not important and urgent, and the not important and not urgent, and if we're being honest and we're safe space here and there's no judgment, where do you feel that you spend the majority of your time? Number 1, I see a number 1, I see a number 4, I see a number 3. Okay, a number 1. Okay, cool. I love honest people. That's so great. Where do you think the best results come from? Yeah, it's number 2. It's number 2. Here's a fun thing too. I won't ask. I'll just tell you because I like you guys. Lead generation naturally fits in number 2. That is where it naturally goes. Because lead generation, while it is like we have to do it in order to have a business, most real estate agents don't do it. It naturally falls into number 2. And one of our biggest challenges as entrepreneurs who have chosen real estate as our field of entrepreneurship is that we've got to create the urgency around lead generation. It's got to be more important than the fires that we put out. And yet at the end of the day, all of this, the control of your time, it's vital. And I will tell you, those of you that choose to show up and take bold with me, if you need any help in controlling time, like we teach about it in the room, and yet if there's something I'm passionate about, you got to understand, I got like 3 full-time jobs. I own multiple businesses. I got 6 kids. I got a lot going on, and I don't work more than 40 hours a week. I am such a huge fan of controlling my time, and I would love to help any of you get better at that. Like if that is like if you leave time with me and you're better at controlling your time, I think it makes me feel very, very happy. So just know that you can do it. I promise you can do it. I know some of you think you can't. All right. So if we're looking at control or lack of control of our time, if we're looking at our mindset, all this stuff, if we're looking at the challenge in our business, here's something to think about. Lack of clarity is not great for your mindset either. Like when you know exactly why you're doing what you're doing, if any of you can think of an agent in your market center or in your market in general that gets amazing results, here's what I can tell you. They know exactly why they're doing what they're doing. They know exactly what's important. They know what isn't important. They don't spend time in that stuff. So that lack of clarity can hurt you. And here's something that I've learned over the years. The problems we have, the blocks that we have, the struggles we have, all that stuff. Once you can identify the problem, like what is the real root? Like if you're thinking last year you didn't hit your goals, what is the real reason? Not the easy, like, well, it's the market, right? What is the real reason? The minute you identify that, you are 80% of the way to the fix. It's the lack of clarity on what's stopping us that stops us. So identifying those problems is huge. So, and some of you may have already seen this because if you were in a meeting with me, so just roll with me. And I'm going to ask you, and even if you did see it, if you didn't write it down, do this for me. Grab a piece of paper and a pen, because here's the reality of this stuff, right? And go ahead and draw a circle. My circle's awful. It's okay. Draw a circle, and then you're going to section out. Let's say that this circular thing, because it's not real circular. Let's say that you could have 8 slices. You're going to section out 2 of them, just like it looks here, except yours is probably prettier. All right, so go ahead and do that. And what I want you to do is I want you to label the sections of the circle. So that top slice, that first little slice, I want you to label that the things that you know that you know. The things that you know, like all of you know how to open a lockbox, you know how to function in your MLS, you know how to drive, you don't think about it, you get in the car and you go. These are the things that you know, you use them on a daily basis. It's a real small percentage of the world, right? That next slice, I want you to label things that you know that you don't know. Things that you know that you don't know. So for example, and again, if you were in the meeting and I'm repeating, we'll move on soon, don't worry. Short sales. I bet you, even though this is a smaller group, I bet you somebody on here has never worked a short sale. Therefore, you probably don't know exactly all the steps to work a short sale. And yet I'm going to take a wild guess that all of you know that short sales exist. All of you know that it would be a way for you to earn money in the real estate business. Maybe someone on here is a buyer's agent and you've never gone on a listing appointment. You know the listing appointments exist though. You know it's something you could learn and put into your business. So those are those first 2 slices. That's a quarter of that pie, right? That big section, the open section, the Pac-Man, I want you to label that things you know you don't know. Excuse me. Things you don't know you don't know. Things you don't know you don't know. AKA blind spots. We move through the world believing this whole adage that ignorance is bliss. It's not. It's not. I promise it's not bliss, right? We've got to be willing to get ourselves clarity, to open the blind spots. That the reality is that so many of your challenges could be fixed like if we just stopped thinking that we knew it all. And I'm not accusing any of you of being know-it-alls. I just know that you're humans with a pulse. So you probably have a little bit of it in you because we all do naturally, right? The minute we let that go and just become totally learning based is when the world opens up for us. So here's what I'm going to do. That's the presentation. I'm going to stop screen sharing. Tell me this stop screen sharing. All right. Okay. Now I can see you guys normal. All right. So here's what I'd like to do. I would love to I'd love to answer any questions, and there are no bad questions. I'd also love to hear 1 or 2 ahas or maybe an actionable item that you plan to take out of here. And then real briefly, I just want to talk about bold. I'm not going to oversell, and yet there is a bold coming, and that's why you're here. So go ahead. Any questions, any ahas, any actionable items? Go. We're a small group. You don't need to raise your hand. Just go for it.
What's your favorite affirmation?
Oh, okay. So like I'm a weirdo. Oh, that's an affirmation. I shouldn't say that. I have a lot of them. I have a lot of them. One of my favorites that I've used, probably the most long-standing one, is I'm an opportunity magnet and money flows to me like water from a tap. It's funny.
Like,
I was a team leader. I was a team leader during COVID. That was fun. So now I'm a former team leader, which is like the best job in Keller Williams. I was sitting with my assistant team leader one day. We had a great relationship and we were kind of just chit-chatting. We were talking affirmations and I shared that one. And I had one of those like little light bulb moments we get every once in a while in our life. I mean, like I said it all the time, so I kind of knew it was working. And yet I looked at her, I was like, oh my gosh, I really do. Because at the time, it was when I first started multiple streams of it's when I really got serious with multiple streams of income. Because I don't know about you, when COVID hit, I had a real moment when I was a traveling coach and somebody who sold real estate for a living. Like I was like, oh my gosh, I'm in so much trouble. And so I was like, I do get money almost every day. Now sometimes I get a check for like $17. Like it's not necessarily, they're not all like six-figure checks. And yet I really had created that world where if I really looked through my bank account, I had such consistent and constant income. And it's just one more reminder of how powerful what you say and what you think is. And again, as much as I know we've all heard it, it can't be overstated. Thank you for that, though. Any other questions, ahas, or something actionable you're going to do, even if it's small? Oh, Charlotte, I can see your lips moving, but I can't hear you. I bet it's great, though, whatever you're saying. Oh, we're holding. We got your back.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, look at you. You're a tech wizard.
It's Marissa that, she's my vibe there. She tells me what to do. I'm going to follow up with you on time management because I greatly need that help.
Oh, I can't wait. I'm not kidding. I'm so passionate about it. I believe that we all deserve to live a life that's enjoyable. And when you don't have control over your time, even though you'll have good days, it sucks. It's the worst. It's the worst.
I would have to say that I've gotten a lot better than I used to be, but there's still a lot of room for improvement.
Well, and it's progress, not perfection. So, good for you on getting better.
I love the list. I wrote the list out and like made it all pretty and color coded. So, I love that.
I like that. That's cute.
Affirmations. I've stopped doing that. I had stopped doing those, but I want to get back into those because I used to do them all the time, especially after the bold classes and stuff. And I 100% know the difference in doing those. And your family does call you crazy and all that stuff, until
You know what's
they see
interesting though?
results.
I was just going to say, if you stick with it long enough, they will no longer call you crazy. Like affirmations has been such a huge help in my family life. Like my kids are by no means perfect. Our life is not perfect. And yet when we just had a birthday party. I have two kids that turned 10 within my children are adopted. That would explain how we could have 10-year-olds a week apart. And we just had a co-birthday party for them. And they have nice friends. And yet to hear the way they talk versus the way my kids do showed me that affirmations work. And that even in an age like 10 years old where it's all like that, like they're still pretty positive. So the power of affirmations is huge. I love that. Anybody else have anything that they would like to share and or ask?
Yeah, I want to know how we move from number one over to two. How do you make that happen? Especially being a relatively new agent. I do everything anybody wants when they want it.
Yeah. Okay. So I mean, that's like a whole thing in of itself. Here, let me give you a couple easy things. First of all, you need to learn that everything is an appointment. Everything is an appointment. Stop telling people what you're doing. I have an appointment at that time. I'm in an appointment right now. I could do this time or I could do that time. So learning that everything is an appointment and you're allowed to be a human being. You don't have to tell someone that the appointment is getting your haircut or going to your kid's baseball game or taking the afternoon off so you don't scream. Like I've got an appointment then, would this or this work? And that's the second part of it, right? Like you lead the options. You know, when you say what's good for you, they're inevitably going to give you a time that isn't good for you. So you give them option A or option B, and if they say neither one works, then you're going to have option C and option D ready. And yet either way, you're going to control it. You know, one of the biggest things for agents is that daily lead gen, and like 1% of agents actually do it, which is why there's such a discrepancy in who earns all the money and who just scrapes by. Nothing is more important than your lead gen. That's another thing. You got to decide whether it's 8 to 11 or 9 to 12 or 8 to 12 or whatever. Whenever you're going to do your lead generation, that is not a time where you set appointments. And unless it's literally like maybe there's some weird situation with the job, that's the only time a seller could meet with you is in the morning. Okay, don't start there though, because what I see happen all the time is, yeah, no, I'd love to meet with you. Oh, cool. Could we meet tomorrow morning at 10 o'clock? And the agent's like, sure, without even thinking about it. Instead of saying, oh, I would love to meet, and I've got an appointment at that time. I could do 1 o'clock, or I could also do 5 o'clock if after work. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, you've just got to get into the habit. Here's what I want you to understand. They're not going to not work with you or meet with you because you didn't take the first opportunity available. And while we obviously aren't doing the same level of impact on people as a doctor, and yet you don't call a doctor or a dentist and be like, this is when I'm coming. Like, it doesn't work that way. You don't call an attorney. Like all of these other professions who we earn very similar money to when we do it right, like you work off their schedule and you make it work. So I think especially, and I know you said you're a little bit newer, and thank you for saying newer and not new, because like you're only new the first day you get licensed, and that's a whole mindset thing too. I hear people call themselves new agents. I'm like, 3 years? You're not new. Stop saying it, right? Anyways, like you're so hopeful to get that first paycheck or the second paycheck or the third or whatever it is that you're like, I'll do whatever you want. And yet that's not how a business person functions. And I think the biggest hurdle is to connect that mindset, right? Because the mindset, like that you're now a business person. Like, I don't know what you did before. Like you are a business person now. And the minute you start showing up as one, people will treat you like one. And that's the reality too. You teach people how to treat you. If you start setting up boundaries and if you start taking steps to control your time, people will fall in line. A few years ago, when I said I was ready to run away and just quit, even though I was making a ton of money, I had to make the decision. If you call me right now, my voicemail still says, if this is after 6, I'll get back to you the next day. I've never had somebody yell at me. I've never had somebody call me the next day and be like, you're fired because you wouldn't take my, like, it's fine. Like, it's just fine. Like, nobody really cares that much. We think they do. And so we jump.
Mhm.
So you got this.
Okay.
And I'm happy to continue the discussion any other time.
Awesome.
So let me ask this question. I know Charla is in, and I think maybe Marissa, are any of you signed up for Bold other than Charla and Marissa?
Just the
Okay, Brian
just the first one.
I'll take the first. That's cool. Karen and Chris, I don't know if you're actually here. What's that? Oh, you're the first one?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So well, that's great. So Karen and Chris, if you're not registered and you'd like to be registered on any level, if you can type obviously I have your names. If you can type in your phone number and your email address, I can get you registered for step 1. If you're interested in the full Bold or have questions about it, let me know as well. So here's my task, and Charlotte has been crushing it already. So those of you that are signed up, here's what I ask. Like, you stayed on this whole time, so you must not think I totally stink. And so my request to you is go talk to somebody today. Hey, I just sat with this guy for 45 minutes. He had some good stuff today. You really should come to the first step of Bold. People sometimes will not listen to their leadership or the coach that's getting paid to come coach, and they will listen to a friend. And here's what I know. I know that we're in a high fail industry. And I know that we're in a really tough market with the highest number of agents we've ever had and one of the lowest number of homes that we've ever had available to sell. There are people that you might talk to even casually, and get them to that first step of that class that might not be in the business in 6 months that you save. So my request, since this was a free class, is to please just go talk to somebody and invite them, tell them to come with you, tell them to come sit with you, get them to the first step of that class. Don't let them tell you they don't have the money for Bold. I don't let people not take Bold over money. We find a way. All right, so that's my request. If you could please just help your leadership spread the word, get people in there, that would mean the world to me and to them. They just don't know it till later. All right, and then I will, I'm gonna put my contact info real quick. If you guys have any questions, anything I can do for you, I want you to please reach out. I am more than happy to help. All right, and then any of you that have the availability and choose to join me, there's another class on Tuesday. It is completely different class. It is not going to be regurgitated material. So if you'd like to be there, then that's great. And then I look forward to meeting all of you at First Step because you're all registered. And I like that about you. All right, have the most beautiful day. I appreciate you guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.